The day I died started out like any other. I had no idea it would be the day my life would end, and yet it would be the day that everything changed. The moment of my passing wasn't dramatic. It wasn't accompanied by a bright light or a burst of sound. One moment I was going about my day, making breakfast, and the next I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It was as if my body had stopped responding. A sharp pain pierced my chest, and I collapsed to the floor. In a heartbeat, I was gone. At first, there was no sense of urgency, no panic. It wasn't as if I was immediately aware of my death. I simply felt a strange, unfamiliar calm, as though I had been released from a heavy burden. I wasn't thinking about the people I would leave behind or the things I had left unfinished. All I could feel was a pull, an undeniable force that seemed to call me forward, away from the world I knew. Then, the world around me shifted. Slowly at first, as though I were waking from a dream, I became aware that I was no longer in my home. Instead of walls and furniture, there was an expanse of endless light. It wasn't the harsh light of the sun, nor the sterile glow of artificial light. This was something different, soft, warm, and enveloping. It seemed to pulse with life, as though the very air was alive with joy and peace. I looked around confused, and that's when I saw him. He appeared before me, not as a distant, ethereal figure, but as a presence that radiated love. It wasn't a love that could be described in words, but a love that was felt deeply in the soul. He was standing there, calm and composed, his eyes full of knowing and compassion. There was no grand entrance, no dramatic lighting. He simply was. I knew immediately who he was. It was Jesus. "Welcome, my child," he said, his voice soft yet powerful. There were no thunderous proclamations or grandiose speeches. His words were simple, but they held a weight of eternal truth. The moment he spoke, I felt something deep within me, something old, something ancient, shift. A part of me recognized him as if I had always known him, even before I had learned about him in church or in my prayers. "Am I dead?" I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. "You are here for a time," he said, his voice full of kindness and understanding. "But your journey is not yet finished." I was overcome with a sense of peace that was impossible to describe. The questions I had asked throughout my life, the doubts I had carried in my heart, all melted away in his presence. There was no fear, no regret, only a profound sense of being held in the most tender embrace. "Where am I?" I managed to ask, looking around at the landscape of pure light. I had never seen anything like it before. "This is a place between places," he explained. "A realm where time does not exist as you know it. This is where souls come to find their way." Before I could ask anything more, the light around us began to shift. It was not unsettling, but rather, it felt natural, as though the next step of the journey was unfolding before me. As the scene transformed, I noticed figures in the distance moving towards us. At first, they were little more than silhouettes, but as they came closer, I realized what they were. Angels. They were unlike anything I had ever imagined. I had always pictured them as beings in white robes with delicate wings and soft features. But these angels were not like that. They were vast and radiant, made of pure light, flowing and shimmering in ways that my mind could not fully comprehend. Their forms were fluid, constantly changing and shifting with the energy around them. I gasped, stepping back in awe, but Jesus, standing next to me, placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Do not fear," he said, his voice as calm as ever. "These are my messengers, the ones who carry the light of my Father to all of you." I watched as one angel approached, its wings shimmering with every step. The being was enormous, towering above me, but there was nothing intimidating about it. On the contrary, it exuded a sense of peace and calm that I had never known before. Its face was not human, yet it was full of compassion, eyes that seemed to hold the knowledge of the universe, radiating warmth and understanding. "They are my protectors," Jesus continued. "They watch over you, guiding, guarding, and teaching. I was fascinated by the beings before me. Some were larger, their forms blindingly bright, while others were smaller, delicate, and elegant. Some seemed to have wings of fire, while others glowed with a soft, soothing light. They moved with purpose, and yet they were gentle, as though their very existence was dedicated to serving the divine will. But what do they do? I asked, my curiosity growing. They serve in many ways, Jesus replied. Some are warriors, battling against the forces that seek to harm you. Others are healers, bringing peace and restoration to those in need. And some are guides, offering wisdom when you feel lost or broken. I watched in awe as one angel, holding a shining sword, stepped forward to protect a woman who seemed to be walking alone in a dark alley. The darkness around her was thick, menacing, but the angel's presence pushed it back, creating a shield of light that kept her safe. Another angel knelt beside a sick man in a hospital bed. I could feel the healing energy flowing from the angel's hands as it touched the man's chest. It was as if the very light of life was entering his body, restoring him in ways that went beyond the physical. They are filled with the love of God, Jesus explained, and in that love, they find their strength. I could hardly believe the beauty of what I was witnessing. I never imagined angels could be like this, so powerful, yet so tender. I turned to Jesus, overwhelmed by the love that filled the space. They are more than I ever imagined, I whispered. They are reflections of the glory of God, Jesus said, his smile warm and kind. They serve not for themselves, but for you. And when you pray, when you call out to God, you strengthen the connection between them and you. I looked around, noticing something else. From each angel, a thin thread of light stretched outward. The threads were connected to the people they watched over, and some of those threads glowed brightly, while others were faint, as though they had been neglected or ignored. What are these threads? I asked. They are the threads of prayer, Jesus replied. When you pray, those threads grow stronger. They allow your angels to act more freely, to intervene in ways that you may not even see. I was filled with awe and a deep sense of gratitude. It occurred to me just how often I had taken prayer for granted, how many times I had prayed only in moments of desperation, forgetting to thank God for all the countless blessings in my life. It's never too late to strengthen that connection, Jesus said, as if reading my thoughts. Your angels are always with you, always listening, always ready to help. As he spoke, I felt a gentle pull, like a tug in my heart that urged me to return. I turned to Jesus, my eyes brimming with tears. Do I have to go back? I asked, not wanting to leave this place of peace and love. Your journey is not yet finished, he said, his voice filled with understanding. But know this, you are never alone. You will always be surrounded by my love, and the angels are with you, guiding and protecting you, even when you cannot see them. And just like that, the light around us began to fade. I felt the familiar sensation of waking, and I opened my eyes to find myself back in my body. I was in the hospital, surrounded by medical staff and my worried family. But something had changed. I was no longer afraid. I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I was never alone, that the angels were always watching over me, guiding me, protecting me. The experience had changed me in ways I couldn't fully explain. But I knew one thing for sure. When everything changes, when the world seems uncertain, Jesus and his angels are there, ready to guide us through the darkness. We only need to remember to reach out in faith,